Yeah, I'll just repeat what I said here earlier today. As you could tell, um, I was trying to actually control my emotion and not get overexcited, honestly, because I'm really thrilled. I mean, the timing of this opportunity for this partnership was massive. We really have worked hard since the last game last season to really build on that season, to not think that we just got it all figured out because we had such a great season. I think that's where Coach Sig and I we talk about it a lot. That it just takes hard work. It takes a vision. It takes to make certain we just never get complacent. You hear him say those things over and over again, and that's how I feel as well. And we were really both pretty paranoid about setting a tone in the department that we really just don't want people to feel like we've got this figured out, because we don't. We've got to adapt. We've got to be able to move every day and make certain that we're working towards a common vision. And this deal with Merchants Bank, this partnership, really just couldn't come at a better time, because it really does continue that momentum. It just says so much about their belief in our program, where we're headed, and just beyond the resources, which are obvious. There's just so many more things. It's just not putting a logo on the field. It's bigger than that. So couldn't be more excited. Could be more excited to get the season going a week from tomorrow. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, Zach, the news.
Yeah, Scott, these opportunities became possible because the NCAA changed the rules about on-field sponsorship. I understand it's not entirely up to you, but I know that the university has some specific policies on naming buildings and structures, and in particular, sort of rules against like corporate partnership in those areas. Do you see that or any other sort of revenue generating opportunity at the university level loosening up, or is there at least any climate for sort of discussing at the university level what are the ways that we can help athletics sort of widen revenue streams a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that the university under Pam's leadership, and certainly we have a new board of trustees, I think that innovating, making certain that we understand what the market is and where modern universities are heading, and not just modern athletic programs. I think we've always been a school that's tried to stay on the cutting edge, and at the same time, I talk about balance a lot in our department, balancing our tradition, our historical values. The values haven't changed. We still are about maximizing the opportunity for our students in every way. Certainly the financial demands, the financial ability to generate revenue is critical, but we'll never do anything that really undercuts the overall mission and foundation of values we have. So I think, Zach, for sure, we're open to different ideas as long as we can stay true to who we are.
Yes, and Todd?
Yes, Scott, the gift, are you dedicating this to specific things like the stadium improvements, or is this sort of like something that you'll year to year look at and say this needs to go here this year, here the next? How are you kind of looking at this $50 million and trying to maximize its use?
Yeah, we really haven't got specific yet where it's going to go, but it certainly will help in a lot of areas. Our priorities really remain, and I talked to Coach Signetti about this earlier this week, which he wholeheartedly agrees with. Our priorities are, our players, number one, making certain we can compete in the environment of college athletics today. We certainly have to make certain we can compete in all aspects of that. Staffing is really 1A. Maintaining staff, coaches across the board is really important to us. And then third would be facilities, right behind those two. So those priorities to me are critical in all of our strategic decisions as it comes to allocating resources. And so with this type of a commitment, a long-term sponsorship opportunity like this, we'll evaluate the use of those in the best way that we can prioritize those three areas for us to move forward and hopefully reach the heights that we want to with our program.
Count on your left, and Mike.
Scott, Mike Petrie mentioned that he was, waiting to see if you guys made the commitment to football and won for them to make the commitment. After that happened, when did the timeline of this start to become something that was going to become a realistic thing? And from Indiana
Yeah, that's a great question. As Mike said, I've known Mike for a long time, and he's been super supportive in so many different ways, not just of athletics, but the entire university. Merchants Bank and Mike personally have done scholarships across uh, campuses, across different areas of university. Specific to the field naming, honestly, we had a basketball game in New York, and I can't give you the exact date. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe three, because President Witten was with me, and I was introducing her to several new donors at halftime, and we ran into Mike Petrie, and I said to President Witten, I said, Mike is the chair of Merchants Bank, an IU alum who's done great things in the business world, and I said, Mike and I have talked at length over the years about love to get Merchants Bank their name on our field. And Mike looked right at me and he said, "Yeah, we've talked about that." He said, "But I told Scott, I want us to be part of a winning program. That's important." And I looked at Pam and I looked at him and said, "That's our plan." And Pam said, "Absolutely." So that was kind of a little inflection point, I think, where we really just put it on the table that we're committed. He could tell that we're committed to building a winning program, and that he certainly wanted to be a part of that if it happened. And so last season, as we started rolling, I would see Mike, and he would just comment that he really is extremely happy with where things are going. Feels the culture change that Coach Sig has created quickly. And I would say towards the end of last season, he and I started talking a little more seriously about what that might look like and what a long-term partnership would entail. And like I said, I can't underscore enough. Certainly, the naming of the field is massive for them in terms of just what that brings in terms of notoriety and attention, and certainly the revenue generated for us is huge given all the challenges in college athletics today. But the partnership, the financial literacy program, all really came together then over those months since towards the end of last season, and just couldn't be more happy the way it really came together comprehensively. But I would say somewhere towards the end of football season last year, we really started to talk about it seriously.
Mike on your right and Zach Beat.
Yeah, Scott,
Yeah.
how's it going?
Good.
This is obviously a tangible, measurable way that you benefited from the 24 season. Are there others that you can share, like from a revenue standpoint, ticket sales, anything else like that, that now that you've had a lot of time in the rearview mirror, you can really see how that season benefited you?
Absolutely. Just generally the overall feel among our students and our fans, the momentum I feel. I was in the grocery store last week checking out. I just ran over on Sunday real quick, and I was in the self checkout line, and I felt a couple of people close to me, to my right, and I looked over, and it was a husband and wife I hadn't met before, and I just looked at them, and they said, "We're just 2 weeks away. We just can't wait." And I told my wife when I got home, it just really made me feel good because it's on people's minds. And so the first thing that last season did is, there's just a lot of hope out there. And we talk about that a lot as a staff, that, we're in the business of really creating hope and creating a feel about the university. And so I think that is really evident and probably bigger than I can remember since I've been here. In terms of more specific results, certainly ticket sales, we've talked about them. Our season ticket sales up 50%, just the overall interest. But beyond that, I think across the campus, across the university, as I sit on the president's cabinet, just even talking to other members of the cabinet, just different anecdotal stories they'll tell me about what having that momentum and having that really good feel about where we're going in football has really helped in so many ways across the university. And, honestly, that's one of the things I really, really take with a lot of seriousness. I think we are a part of something bigger than ourselves, and I want the entire university to benefit from the momentum we can create in football.
Zach Beat and Daniel.
You talk about the things that this kind of brings the players, the coaching staff, the upgrades. For as far as the stadium upgrades are concerned, what specific stadium upgrades do you have in mind, and how does this partnership maybe further accelerate some of those for you guys?
Yeah, well, I would probably put it in two buckets. There's a bucket of kind of just a constant looking at what we can do in the short term. And you can look at this season alone. There are internal things that we're able to complete really since the season ended last year, whether it was finalizing the new football weight room, it was renovating the Mellencamp Pavilion, We put new turf in right as Coach Signetti arrived. I believe it was right before he arrived. Was it right after maybe he started? But anyway, we put a new turf in Mellencamp this off season. Total rebranding, new lighting, new HVAC. It looks like a new building. We renovated the branding outside the coaching offices and just really got a great feel around the coaches' offices. Certainly new turf on Memorial Stadium. We've added a new East Side club. We put together two special suites that are in the now corners of the west side, which we think are super unique, that'll create a great fan experience from our premium seating. So I look at those things as something that we're just constantly going to be investing in, where we feel like we can make quick hits before seasons and really maximize the opportunity from that perspective. The bigger potential renovation, we're still in the master planning phase and what the end result, and I know you heard me say this because you probably will, you keep saying this, well, when will that be done? I think we didn't stall it, but part of with the changes in college athletics with the new revenue share and the $20.5 million new expense line item we have this year, we're still trying to really dial in what should the future of the stadium overall look like, and should that be something that we piecemeal together year after year or something we take on one big project. So today's commitment in the partnership with Merchants Bank, I think really helps in both areas. And the bottom line for me is making certain that we're allocating our resources in the best way that we can get the program where it needs to be and where Coach Sig and I both feel we get the biggest return on those investments.
Daniel in front and Joe.
And Hanky, one thing you said there was a meeting you had with Mike and with Pam where she stopped by for about half an hour or so. What made that so huge, and approximately when was that, if you remember?
I'd say it was probably about a month and a half ago. So I guess I would say that was probably in late July, somewhere in there. And yeah, Mike brought his entire team in. There was probably 8 people from Merchants Bank, and we had our internal team. And, we certainly talked about how this whole thing can come together, the different parts of it. But I really felt it was important that they hear from the president just her vision for where we fit into the overall university and just all the exciting things that she has going on, because I knew that their confidence in her was really important. And so what was super impressive is because the meeting kind of came together, we switched it and it came together sort of quickly. She had a full day, but she carved out time to come over and sat down and talked about how important this was and this partnership, how meaningful it could be, not just for us in athletics and certainly for football, but how football has really impacted the entire university. And so I think it really meant a lot to them that she was there, and certainly helped us get to the eventual touchdown that we're looking for to get over the goal line.
Joe in the back, Denise.
We see it nationally how much football drives revenue for different universities. And in the national media, obviously there's so many talks about playoff expansion, scheduling non-conference. I mean, what have the conversations been like between yourself, other Big Ten athletic directors, maybe, about scheduling, playoff expansion, stuff like that?
Yeah, we talk a lot. And in fact, it's funny because I think it started with COVID, but we've had probably more Big Ten athletic director meetings since I took over 5 years ago. I don't think this would be an exaggeration. I think if you would add up all the other Big Ten AD meetings in the history of IU athletics, we've probably had more in the last 5 years than ever. We just meet a lot because of all the things that are going on, like you said. And so specific for us, I do a lot of one-offs, not just with Big Ten ADs, but certainly around the country. We're very close with the SEC athletic director group. And I try to really, as we put together our strategy for scheduling, I try to get a feel for where things are nationally and what can put us in the best position, certainly prepare for the Big Ten and then prepare for postseason. And so we're not just doing that in a vacuum. As it relates to CFP and beyond and the Big Ten, we talk at length about that. I think Commissioner Petiti is a real savant. I think he's got a real vision for how to make certain we can really take college football to another level. It's super important that we create value for regular season games. I think particularly late season, regular season games, it's one of the things that Commissioner Petiti from the start has really stressed, to make certain that we don't want that by your fourth or fifth game, if you've had a couple losses or maybe a couple non-conference losses, your season's over. If there's a way to really compete at your conference level to really get into the postseason, that's super important. And we wanted to make certain that as best as possible, that postseason is decided on the field and not necessarily put everything in the committee room. And that's not to knock the committee. I think committee has done the best job they possibly can. I'm on the baseball selection committee, so I know what that's like. You know, the committee work is super hard. It's hard at the baseball level. I've been through a mock selection at the CFP. I think with fewer games, less common opponents, less head-to-head competitions to evaluate, I think that makes it even more challenging. So, you know, I think Commissioner Petiti and certainly working with the other Power 4 commissioners is doing everything he can to make certain that we look at the big picture, try to see what's best for college football, but certainly what's best for the Big Ten as well. And then ultimately for us in Indiana, that trickles down. Our schedule will reflect where we can put ourselves in the best position from a conference standpoint and from a postseason standpoint as well. And we're on a month-to-month basis. We'll continue to evaluate that as things change.
Niznam represent.
Yeah, this kind of ties into what you're talking about with the vision, having vision and being able to stay ahead of the curve in the new NIL Go era. We've seen teams already trying to get creative. Tennessee recently announced a deal with Adidas with an NIL component to it. How, I mean, you talk about having discussions, but like how much has that been a focus to try to figure out what you need to do and how much you need to have with NIL now, specifically in kind of the post-rev share era?
Yeah, it's been huge. It's a major focus for us. You know, certainly we have rev share internally, which we're fully participating in, but beyond that, you know, we've prided ourselves really since NIL became an option, certainly for our student athletes, that we want to maximize that opportunity just like we do in everything else, academically and athletically and personally. And so in this new world and the clearinghouse and NIL Go and certainly CSC and the new enforcement rules, we want to make certain within the guidelines that we're given that we're a leader around the country in terms of we want student athletes who come here to feel like they can maximize that opportunity. And so, you know, I mentioned Hoosiers Connect, I mentioned Stephen Harper and Kevin Van Roy and our internal team. You know, I'm really proud that we do a lot of brainstorming, a lot of taking the pulse of what's going on around the country and seeing what's out there. And again, given the rules that we'll play under, how can we make certain that we can compete and our student athletes can maximize NIL opportunities through the new system and do that in a way that allows us to compete at the highest level. So we meet on that and talk about that a lot. It's super important to us.
Zach, last one.
I just wanted to follow up on Joe's question. You talked about it a little bit, but obviously the SEC kind of makes the news this week, going to 9 games.
Mm-hmm.
How in your mind does that advance maybe the progress toward a 16-team format? How does that change maybe, if at all, the way the Big Ten approaches, you know, this? I know the Big Ten certainly has kind of been steadfast about the 4-4-2-2 model. Just, do you think this moves that process further down the line?
Yeah, I think it's first of all, it's great for them in the SEC to have clarity that they know. They've talked about that a lot. You know, I've got, again, several colleagues that, you know, I spoke to one of the SEC ADs yesterday, and I think they feel really good that they do have clarity now that they are moving to 9. And now that you have clarity on that, I think that certainly helps as you evaluate the options moving forward for the CFP. I think it really still comes down to, you know, what are the priorities? What are you really trying to accomplish with the new model? And again, I think Commissioner Petiti's been super clear, as what I said earlier, that, you know, creating late season regular games that are super meaningful are really, really important to us. And then again, I don't want anyone to think that I'm negative about any of the job the CFP committee's done or the job they have to do. Having been there and done it, I understand they're doing the best with what they have. But the more you can decide on the field and less in the deliberation, I've been in a room when you're trying to decide between 2 teams who don't have a head-to-head competition and don't have any common opponents, and you're trying to just look at data to make that decision, and it's super hard. So I think ultimately having that ability to really have automatic qualifiers, have ways that you're really taking that pressure off the committee will certainly help. So, in answer to your question, I really think that the more clarity the SEC has now on their regular season will certainly help as we talk to them and collaborate with them on what we feel ultimately that final model for the CFP will look like. And we look forward to that. And Commissioner Petiti has said numerous times, says it privately in our meetings, and he says it, I think, publicly. You know, we're open to ideas that we think maybe things that we haven't thought about, but certainly the priorities that we lay out are super important to us moving forward, and whatever that model ends up being. And that trickle down for us will be our future scheduling will be based on how that CFP model ends up and how we can position ourselves as best possible to have a schedule that now enables us to prepare for the Big Ten and ultimately put ourselves in a position for postseason play.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Thank you.